Stephanie, thank you for joining me. Why don't you start with telling me a little bit about yourself and your background?
Absolutely. So my name is Stephanie Stone-Robb. I live in San Antonio, Texas, where I grew up. My background is kind of all over the place. I've always been, I'm going to put giant air quotes around creative, whether that was me as a little kid. I grew up as an only child. So I'll preface it with that. I was that kid that wanted to put on a show. I was that kid that would record myself pretending to be like a DJ on the radio and doing intros to songs. I did dance when I was little. I did, all the school plays when I was little, very much leaning into performing much more than visual art, but art and creativity has always been just kind of a part of what I do and what fills my cup. With that, every job that I've had has been very corporate, very operations logic. So, my personality and my day to day are definitely this yin and yang for sure. But yeah, I live here in San Antonio with my partner who is definitely a creative who went to acting school. He is theater through and through. We have two French bulldogs. Yeah, that's just a little bit of me. I'm kind of all over the place when it comes to balancing my almost like Superman. I put the glasses on and I'm Clark Kent and I take them off and I'm Superwoman. And that's kind of how I've approached everything.
I think that there's something about neurodivergent individuals. We have dichotomous selves.
Yeah. It's a fun way to like masking where it's like I can float in and out and recognizing that sometimes that neurodivergence masking can do a lot of harm, but in some ways it is a little bit of a superpower.
Yeah, yeah. So you have been doing a lot of performance stuff in your life. How did you first get into doing visual arts?
So my first foray, maybe my origin story with visual arts is when I was in high school, my senior year, I took photography. The very first thing that our teacher had us do, he said, before I let you pick up a camera, you have to draw something like a still life. I have never been able to draw. I have never painted. I think the closest was, coloring books when I was a kid. Every drawing that I did was a doodle, a stick figure, and it was probably 2 weeks of every class, me taking a piece of paper. He would let us go outside. We could do it in the classroom. We could sit in the hallway, gave us freedom. And I'm like, okay, what do I try to draw? And then how do I do it? And every class I was like, nope, this isn't it. Nope, this isn't it. And then one day, something just sort of clicked, almost like an out of body experience, like something else was in control. And I was inside the classroom. I remember this clear as day. I was inside the classroom and I had two pencils just next to my piece of paper. And so I grabbed the pencils and I just kind of laid one on top of the other. And I was like, if I just focus on the shadows and it just flowed. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is like an actual drawing. And so from there I was able to like, he's like, great, now you can pick up camera. Now we'll teach you to develop film, all that thing. And so then I focused on photography, which is layout and rule of threes and all of that sort of stuff. But I never had to pick up a pen or a pencil and create something out of nothing again. So that was 1996. Well, fast forward to 2025, I knew that I wanted to do something creative that was just for me. Mental health, a chance to slow down, a chance to just be selfish for a moment. One of the things that I've always been very interested in is watercolors. The idea of drawing something out terrified me. The idea of I got to sketch an outline and make it look like something scared me. But with watercolors, it was, well, let me just get paint on paper. Let me just create color and mood versus creating a thing. So that's how I started getting into watercolors. Again, I didn't want to go back into theater or into dance or producing a show because then I was reliant on everybody else's schedules and do we have a space and do we have an audience versus I can sit down in 30 minutes and just play for a moment. And that was really, really exciting to me.
Now it's more about you versus like in a production, you're really focused on like other people that are involved or that are going to be attending the production.
Absolutely, 110%. I don't have to rely on anybody else's permission. I don't have to rely on anybody else's input or effort. It begins and ends with me.
Yeah. So is there a particular moment or like event or person that inspired you? And
Yeah, I don't, well, partially you. I remember when I first was like, I think I'm going to do watercolors. You were the first person that I mentioned, and I was like, what do I get? Here's some of the things that I need to invest in because, again, totally brand new, totally this idea out of my backside. I love a supply. I love a visit to an art store. I love trinkets. I'm kind of a crow in that sense. I'm like, ooh, a shiny thing, a new thing. I absolutely love it. But I also knew coming into this without a visual art background and a visual medium background, I knew that I didn't want to invest in things that would set me up for failure, nor did I want to go with my instinct and go, well, the most expensive thing must be the best thing, and
yeah,
then feel like I owe my bank account and my wallet some level of production. I wanted to kind of hit in the middle. So reaching out to you was that very first thing, and you gave me the best advice. And then I started looking on, like we all do, on TikTok and
yeah,
on YouTube, and looking for just tutorials and things that spoke to me in terms of approach, in terms of personality. I think the personality in some of the tutorials that I gleaned onto was the thing that relaxed me a bit because, again, I was excited to do it, but I was like, what if this is another hobby that fails? Again, coming back to neurodivergence and also having a little ADHD, the desire to pick up a hobby, throw yourself into it fully for about 4.5 days and
sure.
then move on to the next thing is very, very strong. So I knew that I wanted to approach it in a relaxed and not put so much weight into it. And so finding online creators that also approached it in a, hey, it's no big deal. We're just here to play. Sometimes the mistakes is part of the process and we laugh through it is really what I needed in the moment.
Yeah, so I love a few things that you've said, not spending like tons of money on supplies that are not necessary. Because also when we spend like so much money on supplies, sometimes they become precious to us and then we're afraid to use them. And then sometimes we can get so excited about the gathering of the supplies that we lose our, we've used all the dopamine, we lose our steam, we don't actually do the activity like you said. So like really getting that like low, like this is the what I need to start. I'm going to start with it and see how it goes, and then maybe add something here and there as I go along in the process.
Absolutely.
So, what was it that made you think that I want to do something for myself, for my mental health, and that thing should be something creative or artistic?
I think the thing that was sort of that turning point was therapy. Just talking with my therapist. End of 2023, beginning of 2024 was a really hard year in our household. My partner went through a pretty heavy mental health crisis and just navigating that both with him, but also independently. A lot of work was done. He did a lot of work. I did a lot of work. We did work together and absolutely a life-changing experience. But recognizing through therapy that my normal way of handling stressful situations or giving myself value was okay, what can I produce? How can I help? When somebody is in a challenge, how can I come in and fix it? Finding that thing, again, coming back to that idea of like, I can do things that are slow. I can do things that have no production at the end of the day, that have no look what I did. And trust me, I do a lot of look what I did. Like a lot of my watercolors are on my fridge. When you don't have actual kids, you get to decorate your fridge with your own artwork versus your kids' artwork. So, there's a little bit of like, look what I made in a childlike way. When we're little and we color on a coloring page or we stick macaroni on a paper plate, we don't bring it to our parent and go, look at this value that I brought to you. We go, look what I made. Look at this thing that I found joy in. And so taking effort and putting some of the effort that I'm so used to putting into my work and building a business and, running a real estate team and these other things that are just like, okay, here's where my value lies, and going, you know what, it's okay to still put forth effort into something at the end of the day has no benefit other than the moment of creativity. That it doesn't have to have a dollar amount tied to it. It's like a little snapshot of just, this is just a little thing that we put together today. And so my therapist kind of like, we need to find something that does that for you, where it's something that is purely for you and purely for a joy moment or an exploration moment or a trying and failing moment, and not assigning any sort of value to it at the end of the day. So that's what really got me into, I was like, I need to do something visual.
Yeah. So I hear lots of my clients struggling with this very similar thing. I think it is like it's a cultural thing, and I think it comes from, comes from capitalism, and it comes from like our Puritan
Mhm.
roots in this country. But like we have this idea of if we're not always productive and doing something that has like a monetary value, then we are not worth anything as human beings, which is not. And so that idea of like, I'm going to do something where there's not a beautiful end product or there's not something that I can sell, that is really hard for lots of people to. I'm going to start doing that. What have you noticed as far as like how creating impacts your emotions?
I think it allows me to experience kind of a big swath of emotions and face it in a very direct sort of way. Sometimes when I am creating, I feel like just very zen and in the zone, almost like when I was back in senior year of high school and it was like, oh, if I just shade in the shadows and look, these shapes are just appearing and this end product is just appearing in almost an otherworldly sort of way. Sometimes you're just like, yeah, this is it. And then sometimes you're like, I did not intend this at all. And that's okay because something else came from it. And then sometimes it is, I did not intend this at all. And we're just going to pretend like this didn't happen. And I think it just, echoes just how we navigate life. Sometimes things are just clicking and we're feeling on top of the world. And sometimes things change and we're like, cool, like we can still work with this or highlight something else. And sometimes we have a bad day and all of them are valid. And it doesn't mean that when I paint something that I'm like, oh no, this is not it. It doesn't mean that my next painting is going to be terrible. And that was one of the things that I had to learn, especially being brand new, not only in the medium and learning, you know, what does water do with this medium? And if I do my brush this way, it does this. And if I do it this way, it does this, even if it's the same amount of paint, learning just the nuts and bolts of it, but learning what I do today isn't indicative of what I'm going to be able to do tomorrow or next week or next month. And whether that's good, bad, or otherwise, that if I'm in the zone, that doesn't mean cool, I've conquered watercolors. Or if I just paint something and I'm like, yeah, this just wasn't quite it, that it's not a sign to give up. And I think past me in many cases was like, I'm one of those that quite often assigns, again, we talked about, assigning value, that if I am not really good at it from the get-go, I don't want to do it. That learning curve is a struggle for me. I get very in my feelings if I'm immediately not one of the best, top percentile, and gifted and talented program when I was a kid. And it's like, oh, I'm in this bubble. And if I'm not in this bubble, what does that mean to me? Or who am I if I'm not in this bubble? So just recognizing like I am new and it's okay to have something be my first time, but I can continue to learn and grow, and learning and growing is not linear. And just recognizing that it is a process. And at the end of the day, I have to enjoy the process, and it's okay to enjoy the process, even if I don't enjoy the end product.
Yeah, and I think this is also really interesting because you picked a medium that is really hard.
Oh, okay, good to know. I just picked it because I was like, the supplies are easy. I can fit it all in a shoebox and
Yeah,
work.
I say it's hard because it is more of an uncontrollable media, right? So
Yeah.
it's one of those ones that like if you have a pen or a pencil or a marker, you have a lot more
Mhm.
control over what this thing is going to do versus watercolor. So
Yeah.
to jump into that when you don't know how to do watercolor, but you're just like, how do I make this work? Like you had to face a lot of this is not working, or like maybe I didn't add enough water, or I added too much pigment or whatever, right? And so that really does make you have to face things not turning out how you expect them,
Yeah.
and like how are you going to deal with it, which is a very big life skill. This is like a way to practice it in a safe environment with a low stakes thing.
I think the fact that at least with some of the supplies that you had me get and just looking at online creators and what are they using, I also felt that, and maybe this is why I leaned into this medium, was financially the barrier to entry felt lower than, okay, great, I've got to buy oil paints and canvases and set up space in a room and an easel. And like it, again, just having something that felt very compact and in that little moment I think is part of what it was. Again, pen, ink, pastels, not for me, because again, that trauma of I cannot draw, and just repeating that to myself over and over, convinced there's no way in the world that I can make shapes that mean anything, but I don't want to be like super abstract. I want to find something in the middle. Cool, I'll go spend $20 on some watercolor and just some very entry level brushes and kind of okay paper. I will say I am now spending my money on paper. I found that for me, paper is the thing. But to start off, that for a new hobby, under $45 that I could feel pretty kitted out. And then also, again, if the neurodivergence, ADHD, well, this was fun for 4 days. What is the next shiny object came to be? I could hand it off to somebody else and it's okay, and not feel like I blew through my bank account to start a hobby that I wasn't going to see through.
Watercolor can also be like super portable, like you're saying, right? Like it takes up a lot of space and you can do it anywhere. Also, you talking about not being able to draw, it really makes me think about like, I really just started getting into more like drawing and watercolor a couple years ago when I went to an art journal retreat, and they were it was all about like how do we watercolor, and so I learned some really interesting things, but we had to draw in that class, and we learned about a little bit about drawing perspective and things too. And prior to that, I would have been like, I cannot draw, I am not good at it. But after that, I was like, I'm gonna just keep trying. And over the last few years, I keep trying. I keep doing the drawing and the watercolor together when I'm listening, urban sketching is what people call it. And it's getting better, right? Like I am now, I'm like, I can draw a decent house or building or it just takes practice. But like you said, the more we tell ourselves, I can't do this thing, the more we believe it, right? Like we say something over and over again, it strengthens that neural pathway and makes it really strong and hard to think in other ways. So, what is something that you used to believe about your art that you no longer believe?
That I am not a visual artist and that I will never be a visual artist. I was convinced, photography was a lot of fun and I was good at it. So I feel like I have an eye for aesthetics and what goes together. I'm very into fashion and playing with my personal appearance and being fun and funky. And I can appreciate visual art. I was a docent at a contemporary art museum for a while. So that appreciation there, but like always being a passive participant when it comes to visual art. And I don't believe that about myself anymore. And sometimes it's so, when I said my art, even that felt a little weird. I'm just going like, oh, that is my art. And I'll talk about how I've navigated to owning my art in a way, saying my art is uniquely mine. And the things I love about different visual artists, whether it be painters, sculptors, digital artists, video artists, I love that when you can go, oh, that feels uniquely them. Recognizing it can feel uniquely me too. And my style, my learning style, things that I just paint over and over again when I just need a reset of like, I know I can pretty well. That's a Stephanie Stone-Robb original. And it is uniquely me and a reflection of me. And only I can assign that value to myself.
Do you feel comfortable saying that you are telling people I'm an artist?
No, I'm still working through that. I tell people I paint watercolors, but there is still a block of assigning that descriptor to me as a person. It feels like I haven't earned it yet, and I don't know what it takes to earn it. And I think that's something that I need to decide for myself. It's something that I have to get through of like, I can be an artist without it being my whole thing. That I, just in the same way that I consider myself a baker. I don't own a bakery anymore, but I still bake, and that is a skill that is deeply ingrained in me. I haven't given myself permission yet, but I should at some point be able to go, yes, I'm a hard worker and I am a wife and I am a dog mom and I'm an artist and I'm a baker and I'm a friend, and it is just another qualifier, but it still feels like a piece of clothing that doesn't quite fit yet.
I think it comes with that idea of, like you said, maybe I'm not good at this thing, like I'm not good at drawing. But also, I think in our society, a lot of times we think that to say somebody's an artist means that they create art and sell it, and that is how they make, and we don't necessarily like let people have the identity of artist if it is just for wellness or self-care purposes.
And I think also one of the other hesitations for me, and I recognize that it's purely an internal inner critic hesitation, is, am I making money off of it. That I feel is a very unique American thing. If there isn't profit or some sort of bigger picture to it, then how can you wear that label? But I think for me, it is still navigating artist being such a big word. And so I'm comfortable going, I paint watercolors, or I am creative, but artist feels like, oh, I should have more disciplines. Oh, I should have a bigger range of what I can do. And right now it's this tiny little thing that I'm working to expand and get outside of my comfort zone, but it feels that that circle of skill is so tiny and artists feel so big to me.
Yeah. Well, I like that you are saying, okay, no, I'm not quite there yet, but I am okay to say I'm creative. I do watercolor.
Yeah.
Have you, during this time since you started using watercolors for self-healing purposes, has there been a time when you like stopped and you took a break?
Yes. And not with any sort of intention, but just letting the day to day get in the way. You know, I went years without creating anything, whether it was performance based or, anything like that. And it gets so easy to get into the routine of the things that we tell ourselves that we have to do. And then carving out time to do the things that really fill our cup can be a big challenge. My biggest hiatus was, I think it was like 45 days where I did not put a drop of water in a pan. I did not pick up a pencil, a brush. I did not open a book. I didn't cut a piece of paper to create nothing. Like it sat in a little plastic shoebox in my office, and I walked by it every day and I was like, I need to get back to that. And for a little over 45 days, I just did it until it was just like, you know what? The only way that it's going to happen is if I get myself to do it. I told my therapist, I was like, next time I come see you, I'm going to bring you a painting. It gave me something to work towards. Accountability. Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I love doing is little paintings and shipping them off to a friend. I made a post, I think, on Facebook, and I was like, so I'm doing watercolors. Does anybody want me to like send them something? And I was like, they're not very good, but do you want one? I had to give that little disclaimer. If I tell my therapist that I'm going to show up with something, I know she's going to ask. She is probably one of the top people that we do not want to disappoint. So it gave me a reason, even though I don't really need a reason, but it gave me that, again, that accountability, that thing where I was like, somebody is counting on me to bring a little bit of joy. And so that broke that hiatus of, man, I haven't created anything. And so I started off just getting my paints wet and just like basically a watercolor doodle, something that I feel very comfortable with. And then I was like, okay, cool. Then what do I want to do for Astrid? And
During
got back into it.
during that time, did you notice any like increased stress or anxiety because you were not creating?
A little bit of stress and anxiety. I think what I felt more than anything was, and I know we're talking about watercolors, but a lack of color mentally. Life just kind of felt sort of muted. Life just sort of felt like I get up in the morning and I do the thing and I feed the dogs and I log in and I check my email. It just felt so Groundhog Day, where I was getting up and doing the same thing over and over and didn't really feel like I was accomplishing anything. And I will tell you, I don't care how bad the watercolor is. Every time I do a painting, I feel like I at least accomplished something, even if I just like learned something or like, oh, I want to try this again, but with a different technique, or I think I know what I did wrong, or you know what, I don't know what I did wrong. I'm never going to try this again. Let's do something else. I always feel like at the end of the day, I did a thing. And so there was many, many days during that big hiatus where I was like, I don't feel like I'm doing anything.
That having a finished product gives you like a sense of accomplishment for sure.
Mm.
Have you shared? I've seen you do a few videos where you posted.
Yeah.
Tell me about your experience, like sharing what you're doing with other people.
Yeah, I wanted to document it honestly for me. What am I doing? Is it working? Isn't it working? Giving a couple shout outs to like some of especially on TikTok. I love a TikTok tutorial because it's 2.5, 3 minutes sped up and I can go, okay, I kind of get it. And they do their voiceover and it's like, I took this color and we did this and I made this swoopy shape. And I was like, cool, I can make a swoopy shape too. Much more so than a big 30-minute, 45-minute tutorial. So I love a TikTok moment, but it did a couple things for me. Number one, I have a separate TikTok account just for my art stuff. And chef's kiss, I have created the perfect algorithm, and I am so precious of the folks that come up in that feed. And what I see, there is no political stuff. There is no, here's like the dash cam from this Karen gone. It is so honed in a perfect way where all I am getting is just creative folks, kind folks, gentle folks. The support has been lovely, whether they're laughing with me at something silly that I created, complimenting, giving advice when I'm asking for it. It is just a lovely little art community. And I think more so than like an in-person painting class or something like that, where I feel competitive, where I feel like, again, coming back to being that kid who was top percentile and gifted and talented, and this is what my label is, and this is how I'm viewed. And if I'm not that, then who am I? That a little bit of that anonymity was a really nice and gentle way to dip the toes into building art community. Plus, it's been really cool to like go back and go, okay, what did I create day one? What did I create day three? And just seeing how things have changed, or even going, what are those days where I felt top of the world, where I felt everything was clicking? And so when I've even taken like little short hiatuses and I was like, I need to get back into it, not in the groove. But what was that thing that just came really naturally? Let me do that again. And it almost feels like, you know, before you work out, like doing like some stretches just to warm up the muscles. And so using those old videos to go, okay, this is a great muscle warm up exercise before I go in and try something I've never done before.
Yeah, and I've seen a couple of watercolor artists that I follow say like it is beneficial to like say I'm going to paint this particular thing and I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
do it like 3 or 4 different times, right? Because each
Yeah.
time you do it, you maybe approach it a slightly different way or you learn something and then you put that into the next one. And so by the
Mm-hmm.
time you've done it 3 or 4 times, the last one looks very different, even though you're
Mm-hmm.
doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, 100%. One of the other things too on documenting it, going back and when I see stuff that initially I didn't like and going, you know what, actually that came out pretty good. Why was I so hard on myself in the moment? Why was I like, why did I just like, flip the next page in the sky? We're going to pretend like this never happened. And then when I see it out of context and I'm like, that actually was pretty dope.
Yeah, because when you go back and visit it, right? Like I was talking to a client about this yesterday. Like sometimes you just have to close your book and put it away
Hmm.
and then come back to that thing later because in the moment when you're doing it, you have all that frustration of like it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, or like I was trying to do this thing and I did this other thing instead. So you have all that tied up in
Yeah.
you are appraising the image. And then, so if you put it away, and like you said, come back to it at a later point, you can just look at it without having all that other emotion going on inside
Mhm.
and say, oh no, like maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought it was.
100%.
I have also found, like you said, artists online are like super supportive of each other. I remember back when Instagram was just artists, like all artists.
Yeah.
Everybody that I was connected to on Instagram, and I felt like I had friends all across the country that were just artists, and everybody supported each other. And then now, Instagram isn't very different now.
Yeah.
People are still supportive there. And then on
Yeah.
the art community is very supportive of each other too. So I really appreciate that about the art community.
For sure. Follow a lot of watercolor people, some who are very seasoned for their tutorials, some who are in the same boat as me. And that has also been a great thing where like I'll search hashtag beginner artist, hashtag new artist, and just to find like, hey, we're in this together, just futzing around on a Sunday morning just to do something and being able to support folks that are in that same boat. But I will tell you, Rachel, my second favorite demographic other than watercolor artists on TikTok are dudes who crochet. The brochet group TikTok. If we could form a street gang, the middle-aged watercolor women and the bros who crochet, we would rule the world for sure.
I have to look them up. So tell me, what would you say to somebody who is curious about using art for their mental health, but they don't know where to start?
Yeah, I would recommend just going out and just trying something and recognizing that it's not going to be great. We refer to it as an FFT, a bleeping first time. You run into an FFT, and that's okay. And you sometimes you gotta go, it's not that it's bad, it's just an FFT. And that's something that I have to remind myself all the time when I try something new or get outside of my little comfort zone bubble of being creative. One of the other things that was a great turning point moment for me, and this was from one of the watercolor creators was a challenge to purposely create bad art. And so what I did is I asked ChatGPT, I was like, I need to paint something with watercolors. Give me 5 completely stupid, silly, purposeless ideas. And one of the things that it gave me was flying pizza. And I was like, great, we're going to paint a piece of flying pepperoni pizza. And so just going, this is so stupid. It doesn't matter how bad it comes out because it is supposed to be bad. There is never going to be a painting of flying pizza in the Louvre from anybody. So cool, let's just be dumb with it, as dumb as we possibly can. And so giving yourself permission to go, let me just do something really just stupid and, for lack of a better term, pointless, just to go, cool, it just exists in time and that's okay. And I never intended for this to be shown or gifted or it's the cover of somebody's birthday card or this cute little moment that I can post on Instagram. It is just a flying piece of pizza. And being able to kind of just laugh at the mistakes was a great moment to go, yeah, we can, not just in art, but in just things in general. Sometimes things don't go according to plan. It happened to me as a baker more times than I can count, where we're just like, okay, this is so bad that you just have to pause and laugh for a moment, and then you just dust yourself off and get back into it. But, taking that first step and giving yourself a little bit of grace, and again, just approaching it in the same way that a child approaches creativity is a wonderful way to take the pressure off.
Yeah, I like the child approach because it is like curiosity and play.
Mhm.
Do this, or I think I would like this and I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Nothing has to be permanent. Nothing at all that we do has to be permanent.
If you imagine yourself, 5 or 10 years from now, what role do you hope that art will play in your life?
I hope that I am still leaning into this medium and maybe exploring other mediums. As you know, we are planning a big relocation in a few months. And so recognizing probably more so than ever, having something that is uniquely mine as I navigate a new community and new routine is going to be really, really important. I started to look at like urban sketch groups in my area of Portugal that we're moving to, again, as someone who is like, I can't draw, and just going, I need to continue to get outside of my comfort zone, because there is a point of pride in trying something new and going, okay, it's not perfect, but I did it. I attempted it. I made an effort. Again, I was brave enough to try something that I don't feel that I'm good at, and let's just see what happens. So again, watercolors, I think for me is the medium that feels like it fits, but just continuing to occasionally dip the toes in the other things that are there.
Yeah, so I think what I really love about urban sketching is that the more you look into it, you will find such a wide variety of style that people do, right? So there are people who come from an architecture background and they do these really detailed architectural sketches where everything is the exact angle and it's so perfect. And then there
Yeah.
are people who are more like scribbly and people as they walk by in 2 seconds and it has to be really fast and not perfect. And so I like that urban sketching can be whatever fits for you.
My art is purely run off of vibes. So, having that diversity. And I think it's also, especially, with my partner and I are moving not only to a new city, but a new country, a way to build community. And, recognizing that art and visual art can be a very solo practice. I could sit at my dining room table for hours and just paint and nobody's the wiser. And, maybe he's off doing something else or he's not at home or he's working on. And if I didn't record it or I didn't tell anybody, no one would know that I'm doing it. But if I'm getting out and working in that space, it allows me to do something that isn't work related, isn't production related, but again, that accountability being there and getting a chance to meet other people, because that's one of the big things that makes me nervous is like, how do I go from a place where I know lots of people to a place where I essentially know nobody and not just hole up in our apartment, and finding something that intrinsically brings me joy and being able to carry that joy and confidence out into the city.
Yeah, so I have met numerous people through going to urban sketching events in Barcelona, right? Way to meet people. And already you have something in common, right? And this,
Exactly.
even if you're not going to do other things together, like this is a person
Yeah.
that you can be like, let's meet for coffee and draw one day, watercolor, whatever. I love that. And I have decided to document the move because I'm moving. So I have a separate watercolor journal for documenting my move.
Oh, cool.
I did in it was draw a stack of boxes that was in the house before the movers came. And then I also drew the house because I was sad about leaving this house. It's something part of my life, so I wanted to document that as well. But I also thought this is a great way to like all of this that we're facing, right? Like we're facing that, like go to the new place, be lonely, miss things that we left behind, like have these new experiences. And I was like, I'm
Hmm.
totally doing this in its own separate book, is how I'm going to approach it.
Yeah.
I think it would be a really cool, like future thing to look at.
Reflection. It's like, back in the day where everybody took photos and printed them out. And once a year, you're like, let's pull out the photo album and we're going to sit at the sofa and here's Uncle John and you remember this Thanksgiving dinner with your grandma. And it's that way to take all the stuff that's going up in our brains and again, take it out of context and just reflect back because, like I talked about with sometimes when paintings don't go according to plan and it's all the other baggage that's tied into it in that moment. And when we can just go, this was just a moment, this was just an experience, this was just 30 minutes at the dining table, this was just a day where things were in boxes. And being able to process some of that in a again fun and hopefully at the end of the day joyful way.
Yeah. So, what right now is an artist or a topic or a theme that is inspiring you?
I will tell you, Rachel, I'm all over the place. The thing that I consistently have been coming back to is just playing with color stories. I am aesthetic and like I fashion and makeup and like that sort of thing. My partner's also a drag performer, so we are just constantly like glittery and all that sort of thing. And so I can like lean into that. But then when it comes to like the science of colors, I'm like, oh, these definitely don't match and they don't even go together. And so some of the things that I've been practicing is taking a base color and then adding a blue to that base color and then adding a yellow to that to create that same base tone, just focusing on color. So I've been doing like fun, taping things off in geometric shapes and being like, okay, let's do this here, creating almost abstract pattern, really taking a time to focus on color as my inspiration. So not so much subject matter or anything external. It's just like, I just want to play with breaking this habit that I have of just going willy-nilly with color.
Yeah, I love it because a lot of people don't, even if you understand a tiny bit of color theory, you don't understand it a lot without playing with the colors like that. And especially like with watercolors, unless you're going to have, 100 different ones, you're going to need to mix something at some point, right? Like when I'm out traveling, I don't always have like the right shade of green or brown or whatever to match this thing that I'm
Yeah.
walking. So I have to mix and either you're gonna mess that up a whole lot at the time you're trying to do it, or you can play with it ahead of
Yeah.
time.
Guilty as charged. And that is definitely me.
Is there anything else that you want to add or tell people before we like come to a conclusion today?
I will be the first to admit that right now I haven't been recording my paintings as much, but now that our move abroad is in a little maintenance mode, setting up the tripod and the camera, I want to get back into it. So I'm on TikTok, Steph Does Art. If you want to follow along with the good, the bad, and the ugly of being a new artist. But yeah, I think more than I even expected, having art be that thing that anchors me from a mental health perspective. I was constantly trying to compensate my way out of moments of loneliness and moments of sadness and moments of hopelessness, reflecting back into what my partner was going through and going, well, dang it, I can't fix this. And if I can't fix this, then what value do I bring? Just the noises that go along with stress and some of the things that accompany it. And again, it just started off as like, I just need to do something fun just to shut my brain off for a little bit and finding something that I am proud of and that I am willing to share and that I just kind of pawn off on people from time to time. And it's like, here, I painted this little postcard today, take it. I don't care what you do with it, but I just want you to have it. But it has done so much for me, again, mentally, and just recognizing that I am more than just like the business side and again what I produce and how much money we bring in and all of that I can just be Stephanie for a moment with no external value.
Okay, so I often ask my clients this at the end of sessions, and so I'm going to ask you see what you have to say. What is one self-care activity that you are going to do in the next week or so for yourself that is just for fun or enjoyment or for relaxation?
Yeah. So by my bed, and this is also really good advice for creatives who are feeling in a creative slump. At least it worked really well for me. There are these reverse coloring books. The shades are there, the color is there, but there is no outline. I used to do a lot of coloring books, and then I would get into the, well, what color do I want to paint the roof of this house? What color do I want to make this flower? And be like, oh, I got to make another decision. There are times where I'm like, I don't want to make a decision. I don't want to decide what to paint. I don't want to decide what color this bird's feather is. I can't. By my bed, when I have those days, I pick up my reverse coloring book. So it's just a black marker, a black little fine line pen. That's the only thing that I can put on it. And so, I'll outline and decide where does this, will still decide a little bit like, okay, where does this little bubble end? Or is it connected to the next splotch? Does this one have shading on it or no? And when I say that my art is purely vibes, it is we are only going over vibes because we're not looking to create anything realistic. It is just highlighting the colors and the shapes that are already there for us. And so that is my self-care thing that I will be doing this week is some reverse coloring books. They are my new favorite thing for when full-on painting just doesn't fit into the day, or I'm just having one of those mental health days or physical health days where I can't bring myself to do something like set up everything that feels too cumbersome. Marker and my reverse coloring book, and I am good to go, and I can do it laying in bed.
Yeah, I love that having an activity for on those days where it's just, everything is too much. You still do something that's self-care without it being more. Well, thank you so much. I loved hearing your perspective on everything.
I appreciate you having me and all of these thoughtful questions. I really, really appreciate it, Rachel.